Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World and the Black Business School. I thought that I would do a quick overview on debt. I just read something about student loan debt and how bad it's gotten, particularly given that black people, we're not able to repay our student loans. So that's become actually one of the greatest factors in the growing wealth gap, in the fact that black wealth is actually going backwards and predicted to drop to zero by 2053. I'm completely convinced that two major factors in this process are one, we're not as quick to want to invest in the stock market, and then two, we kind of have been led to falsely believe that taking on a lot of student loan debt is the key to financial success, and that's one of the things. So a lot of your black wealth is actually going to big white universities that don't hire black people. So that's an economic drain that's gonna haunt you for the next 50 years until we, as a community, get past that. So what I decided to do really quick, because you guys know, I'm a finance professor. I've been teaching finance to college students for 25 years, and I can sort of break things down in a certain way that might be helpful to you. The What I did was I made a short little list of about six of the worst kinds of debt that you can have. Debt is not always a bad thing. People like Dave Ramsey, they'll say debt is bad, debt is bad, debt is bad. Well, the reason he says debt is bad all the time is because, if you're not, it's almost like driving a car. If you don't know how to drive a car, then it's better that you stay from behind the wheel. Or if you don't know how to use a gun, it's better to not have a gun around at all. But people that know how to use guns safely are, in many cases, safer and better off than people who don't know how to use guns. Or like fire. You tell a child don't use fire at all, whereas an adult you kind of tell them, hey, use fire for this, but don't use it for that. Same thing is true for debt. A lot of people tell you to stay away from debt because they see so many Americans misusing debt, and the debt puts them in serious financial trouble. So Dave Ramsey just plays it safe and says nobody touch the debt. Whereas when you get into more financially, sophisticated realms, people actually can explain to you how debt can be used as an accelerator of economic progress. But anyway, with that being said, let me give you the six worst kinds of debt. First is gambling debt. Gambling debt, I think, is probably the worst kind of debt I can think of, because it's typically set up through people like loan sharks and all that. It's people who come and break your legs and kill you if you don't pay. Also, it's connected to an addiction. Financial addictions are terrible. They can ruin your life, ruin your family. There's very few kinds of debt worse than gambling debt, in the sense that, when somebody has a gambling addiction, it's hard to come back for that. It actually hits the same dopamine centers as cocaine and all that stuff. So be cautious if you ever decide to marry somebody and they gamble too much, because that could really hurt you financially. The second worst type of debt, in my opinion, would be IRS debt. The reason IRS debt is so bad is because when you go into debt with the IRS, it's like financial quicksand. So you need to make more money in order to pay back the debt. But the more money you make, the more money they take. So the debt isn't static. The debt is growing. It proportionally is growing proportionally to how much money you make. So you go out and you make another $1,000,000, and they're like, oh, you owe us another 400,000 on top of whatever you owed us before. So it can be very frustrating. A lot of people that go deep, deep, deep into IRS debt don't ever get out. Joe Louis, the great boxer, the Brown Bomber, went into IRS debt. He died broke. A lot of people, Red Fox died broke. A lot of people die broke because of IRS debt. So be careful with that. The third worst type of debt, in my opinion, will be like payday loans, or these really, really difficult lenders. They're considered predatory lenders, mainly because they charge interest rates that are really, really high, and their fee structure is just absolutely ridiculous, to the point where there's an argument to be made that it's unethical to take advantage of people in that way. But at the same time, what they're taking advantage of is typically a high desperation and low sophistication among the borrower. A lot of people, when they need the money, they'll sign anything to get the money, and so you can legally come back and say, look, you signed this was legal. But then there's like sort of the ethical thing that says, okay, you tricked these people, you fooled them into a bad deal. So there are people that take a stand that says that these payday lenders are bad. I'm a person that says, for those who are financially intelligent, I actually think payday lenders in some context context, there's a reason why people use them. I'm not going to say that, and it's not always because they're dumb. It's because maybe they're saying, look, I'll pay a high interest rate if I can get this money for something I desperately need right now. And I've seen people use payday lenders and walk away feeling fine with the deal, because remember, there's a reason why there are people that will go back to them over and over and over again. It's not because they're dumb. It's because sometimes that's the only place you can get the money. It'd be nice if banks made their funding available to everybody in the hood, but they don't, right? So sometimes people get desperate and they're like, I need food and I'll pay 30% interest to get some food. Is it wrong to charge the 30% interest? Yeah, but you know, if that's the best deal you can get, then I know when I was younger, I would, be like, hey, who's willing to help me out? If you help me out, I'm going to say thank you. I'm not going to say you exploited me, because I always do have that choice. But payday loans are bad in the sense that if you go deep in that kind of stuff and you're dealing with a lender that's just absolutely exploitative, the fees can just be insane and end up kicking you in the butt, and you're stuck for a long time. You don't know why. Fourth, the type of debt that's the worst would be credit card debt. Because if you go deep in credit card debt, the interest rates tend to be super high on credit cards. That's hard to deal with, hard to get out of for some people. American consumers love to spend. Also, you're going into debt for a bad reason. You're going into debt so you can buy shoes and clothes and stuff like that. A lot of times, some people use credit card debt to fund their business, which I actually don't think is a terrible idea. Given the credit sources are dry up and it's tough to get funding and banks won't give you the money. Well, I remember when I started my business, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get this money by hook or crook, any means necessary. Whatever I got to do to get it, I'm going to go get it. So credit cards can come in handy if you have a constructive purpose, but most of us don't use credit cards for a constructive purpose. We use it to go buy things that we don't actually need, and these things erode in value, so you end up owing money for something that it pretty much doesn't exist, or it has almost no value at all, right? You buy $1,000 worth of clothes, you can't sell those clothes for $1,000, but you still owe the $1,000 plus interest. Next, number 5, student loan debt. Student loan debt is horrible, because student loan debt, the biggest thing about student loan debt is that it's massive. Universities are overcharging the American people by an insane amount of money, to the point where they're as bad as the payday lenders. They're as bad as the payday lenders, because here you've got this $10,000 education, but you owe $100,000 to repay it. And also on top of that, this education, which isn't worth more than $10,000, but you owe $100,000, it's not helping you generate the income necessary to repay that debt. So actually, half of all black college graduates have defaulted on their student loans. Student loans are like a financial STD. They stay with you for the rest of your life. All economic relationships are disrupted because your credit is screwed up. So you can't buy a house, you can't quit your job, start your business. You're not in a good financial position to quit your job. So you're stuck in this bad economic relationship with a job that you can't stand, because you got this financial STD, which makes nobody want you. So I don't want anybody to feel bad about that, but I am trying to say that we got to think about our kids and help them to avoid that student loan debt. That it's a trap, especially for these for-profit universities. They've exploited the hell out of poor people, black people. Again, they're as bad as the payday lenders, and that's the truth. Number 6, the last but not least, will be auto loans. I think auto loans are terrible because cars depreciate in value very, very fast, but the debt stays here, but the value drops. What you really actually want when it comes to debt is you need the debt to be here, and you need the value of whatever it is you use the debt for to go up, right? So you can borrow for an asset that appreciates in value, and you're winning. That's what wealthy people do. They'll borrow $1 million and go make $5 million, and then they get a $4 million surplus. But what a less sophisticated person might do is they'll borrow this much money, and the asset will drop in value. So then you end up becoming underwater, where the amount you owe is higher than the value of the thing that you borrow the money for. So don't put yourself underwater. Student loans put you underwater. Auto loans put you underwater, and some of these other loans that I mentioned also put you underwater. And again, with gambling debt being number 1, that puts you deep underwater, because you're not just dealing with the financial distress, but you're dealing with the emotional distress of overcoming an addiction. So that's my interpretation of debt, and the worst kinds of debt that you really want to avoid and be careful with. I hope this helps some of you. If you actually want to learn more about finances and managing your money, stuff like that, we have great programs in the Black Business School. Very low cost, won't put you in debt, and I think you're going to love it. Doesn't cost you more than $2 or $3, $4 a day for a lot of the programs. So feel free to come visit. You know, our first program in our Black Money sequence is blackmoney101.com. You can go to blackmoney101.com to get started, and then you can move to 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, and it's better than college because we teach you everything you need to know. Trust me, I'm a college professor. I know this stuff. I've been teaching this at universities for 25 years, so this is my thing. So anyway, I'm out of here, guys. Have a good day. Hit the thumbs up button, and I'll see you soon. Be good. Peace.